Doesn't anybody stay in one place anymore?
Doesn't anybody stay in one place anymore? The answer to Carole King's musical question is certainly not many Americans. In fact, the average American can be expected to move 11 times during a lifetime, and 1 of 6 families moves every year. What many of them may not realize is that there's more to it than meets the eye when it comes to cutting today's high cost of relocating. Joining me now is Terry Siman, president of the Institute of Certified Financial Planners. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning.
I'm very much one of those 6 families. I've moved at least once a year for the past few years, but apparently this year is a much bigger year for moves than any before. Why is that?
I think it seems that way. Industrial America, commercial America seems to continue this slimming down. More and more white-collar jobs are being lost. Dual wage earner families are forced to look elsewhere for work, and I think there's a lot more flexibility in America these days, so people are moving.
And the summer is the biggest time of the year.
Absolutely. Good time to get relocated and get set up before school starts.
Actually, about 50% of the moves actually happen during the summer months, so it's become difficult for people even to get movers to do their job.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing.
Aside from the obvious ways of cutting down on costs, getting cheap movers and other things like that, you say that employers can really help a lot more than people realize?
Yes, I think we're seeing a lot more interest because of the large amount of double wage earner families that employers are starting to provide for that non-transferred working spouse. Cost of living adjustments, some outplacement services for that non-working spouse, helping the family actually make a complete move instead of just their employee.
So when an employee is transferred, you're saying that in many cases they actually are coming up now with cost of living adjustments? And
not just cost of living adjustments, but also helping the other spouse find work in the new city. Actually helping to buy and sell the home. Sometimes the employer will even buy the home that can't be sold. I think employers are trying to do a much better job to keep those workers that are important to them.
What about somebody who actually is moving not because he or she is transferred, but because the job market has gone sour where they live?
Well, it's a little bit more difficult. They're not getting certainly that bonus or that stipend from their employer, but they too can look to some of the tax code provisions and try to make the best of it they can. That's a difficult subject, though. It's gotten slimmed down.
It has gotten slimmed down significantly just in the past year or so. The 1993 tax code has significantly cut back on this, as I have unfortunately learned. And what advice do you give people in dealing with Uncle Sam? What can they do? What can't they do?
Well, certainly the Clinton Tax Act did give us fewer deductions than we can work on, but they have to be careful to save their receipts and make sure they do some personal tax planning and personal financial planning.
So we're looking at the screen now. You can deduct the cost of moving and storing household goods, and
yes, there are certain things that you have to be concerned about, though. We've seen the distance reduced from 35 miles actually increased to 50 miles, so you have to make a move of at least 50 miles, and then there are some other requirements that you have to jump through.
And there's some things you cannot do these days, right? You can't
deduct the cost of lodging, temporary lodging anymore, the cost of meals. It's a little bit more difficult.
And also the cost of breaking a lease.
Yes, some of the things that we used to think of as inherent in making that move that we did get some benefit from, they're gone.
Some bad news, but I guess there are things out there that we can do.
Well, the government's looking for revenue, so we have to be careful.
Okay. Terry Siman, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Great to be here.
Let's head over to Willow and some weather.